A little while ago, my mom bought me this adorable little house decor item, and I thought, I really want to weave a summertime house. So let's get started. We do have a couple other house projects on the channel. One of them is a Christmas one and the other is a mug rug one, but I would really like to do something that feels summery. So we're gonna do that today. This little thing is definitely gonna just be very much a starting off point. It's just the thing that made me think, I want to weave a house. So I'm definitely not going to be trying to replicate this. It's just sparked the idea for me. And I mean, I love little houses. I have little houses that I use for Christmas decor. I have this one now, and I think I just like small, adorable houses. So we're gonna weave one. I am gonna be using our Spruce and Linen large flat pack frame loom. You can find this at spruceandlinen.com or in the description box below. And I'm gonna be doing that because I wanted a lot of space to work in. So we're gonna have a roof as well as the house. So I wanted space to add detail. I'm probably gonna do some more needle felting on this one because I just love doing that. And I've grabbed a few different neutral colors to choose from for the house and then the roof. So these are all, except for this one, I think, Lion Brand Woolies Thick and Quick. This is a yarn I use all the time. It comes in a lot of colors and it's really, really nice to weave with when you're doing a lot of plain weave. So I use it all the time. Now my thoughts are, I wanna use this sort of almost an oatmeal color with all these different flecks of brown and black and beige, because I think that that would give this a interesting texture for the actual house portion of this. So it's not super perfect. Does that make sense? I have this debate in my head because I also do love a good crisp off-white, which would be kind of more similar to this. So let's play around with a couple different ideas. So we have this one that already kind of has the texture built in. However, another option could be, we could use off-white and we could integrate, you know, possibly some beige in there to create texture as well. But I just don't know because I really like a crisp off-white background. Well, let's pick a roof color before I go any further. I'm kind of thinking this brown. I think it's really pretty. It's really warm and it provides a lot of contrast to either of these colors. I think this one is where I would like to go. And now it's just deciding how I want to do this. If I'm going to be adding detail on top of the house, for instance, I might want to add some foliage to the front of this. I think that could be really beautiful. I might want to add vines going up. I don't even know. I just want to decorate this house and make it really pretty. So we need to decide. Let's just lay out some of this. I'm just trying to decide if that looks if that's going to end up looking too busy or messy. My gut is saying off-white. I think I'm going to forgo this. I think I just want to do the really crisp off-white house. I'm going to get started warping my piece. For this one, I'm going to be using 4/8 cotton. And sometimes I get those questions of how do you choose which warp string to use? It really just depends what you're weaving. I would love to use linen in this one because I love the color of linen poking through the off-white. So this is what the linen looks like and it's really pretty. However, linen is very dense. And so if you're gonna be doing needle felting, you do run more of a risk where your needle gets caught up in the linen more than it does in the cotton. So that's why I'm gonna use cotton for this piece. And the reason I'm gonna use 4/8 cotton is it's nice and thin. So just to give you the comparison, this is the 8/8 cotton, this is the 4/8. Essentially, the 8/8 is twice as thick as the 4/8. It's been a while since I've used 4/8. And I think I wanna utilize the majority of the width of my loom. I'm gonna be doing a single warp, which just means that I'm putting one string between each notch. Start one inside the end just because when I'm tucking in ends, it's always nice if it's a little bit more inside of this bar. And this is a 4 ends per inch loom. So that just means in every inch, there's 4 notches, which means they're about a 1/4 inch apart. Let's just do 25 loops. So now I'm just tying my string at the bottom. The next thing I'm gonna do is tape my loom down to the table so that it doesn't shift around on me. I much prefer weaving flat on a table than weaving upright personally, because for whatever reason, I have a really bad issues with neck and shoulder tension and pain. And while sitting here looking down at something isn't the best either, it does result in less pain than if I have my arms up and in front of me for a really long time, like doing this motion, versus being able to sort of like allow my arms to be more at a natural position down more. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just what it works for me. All right, this piece is quite wide, so I'm going to need 2 pieces of cardstock at the bottom instead of only 1, because you can see that my cardstock just isn't wide enough. The other thing I used to use a lot was actually cardboard from a cereal box. It just works really well for something firm to beat down onto, but isn't like intensely rigid like a piece of wood. It doesn't need to be that unbendable, if that makes sense. So I'm just weaving this in with plain weave, and I'll add another piece to finish off the length. So I'm just gonna slip this in. Now, since I'm going to be using the off-white as the majority of this piece, and I'm going to do an off-white fringe as well, I am going to use off-white for the base work. So the base work is going to include a twining stitch followed by 2 rows of plain weave. And this is a super bulky weight yarn. Now I'm ready to do the fringe. I've decided to use a combination of different recycled cotton strings. This one is 5mm and this one, I think it's 2mm. We're gonna combine those two and it just gives it a little extra texture in the fringe. And I'm gonna do a short fringe. I've been on a pretty long short fringe kick and I love it. So I need 25 pieces of each of the sizes. I'm grabbing 1 piece of each size of the string. I'm going to use a basic Ryan knot to go around 2 strings at a time, and that will make up my fringe. The fringe is on. We're ready to start weaving, and now I need to map out what this is gonna look like. I always like to leave some room at the top, not only because it's really hard to weave all the way to the top. It gets really tight when we get up there, but also because I want to make sure I have enough to wrap this around something, whether that's a dowel or perhaps a branch. It's just a willow branch from my parents' tree. So I need to map out where the house is going to and then where the roof is gonna be. And I'm gonna do this a little bit differently, I think, just because I kind of want to keep this all a rectangle. So I'm thinking it's gonna be off-white for this section and the brown will go to here. It's not gonna be angled like a house. Like it's not gonna have a peak like this. It's gonna just almost as if you're looking at a house fully straight on. So we're not gonna get the same type of depth, if you will, as you do on this little house here, just because, so if you look at it like this, we're gonna weave a bunch of off-white. My house is obviously gonna be shorter and wider than this one, so I might do extra windows. So it's kind of in thirds. It's like 1/3 roof, 2/3 house. So if we go 7.5 inches for the house, and then another 3.5 for the roof, and then we could have our door and then windows. Now, this piece, I'm gonna do a little bit differently. I think I'm just gonna weave the background and then everything else is gonna be added on top. So the door, the windows, any extra details is gonna be added on top. In embroidery, the French knot is a common way to make like a flower type situation. So I'm wondering if I put some frizz ribbon and wove it in and then later add flowers on top of that, that might be really pretty and add some nice texture. How hard will that be going sort of through this is something I don't know. So I'm just using these as markers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're gonna use those as markers, and I'm only gonna take this frizz ribbon up until that point. Sometimes I say things confidently and I just literally have no idea what I'm doing. The question here is, do I want this super straight or do I want it kind of wavy? My instinct says I should do it a little bit wavy because I think that'll look more interesting. I might not be able to go very much because we're gonna have the windows. Now the windows could technically sit slightly behind the flowers because that would almost make sense, having like the flower bushes kind of going over top at the bottom of the windows. So that would probably be okay. So I'm just gonna keep going. I think I feel all right about it. You know, something that's challenging is when you're constantly doing projects you've never done before, you're just kind of like, maybe? I don't know. And you kind of have to just do it and then learn from it for the next one, I guess. So maybe this side I'll do a little bit different so they're not exactly the same. Okay, they are pretty similar on each side, which is totally fine. I think I'm gonna leave it there. Now we can start the background. Guess I might as well just slip those all up out of the way. So I'm gonna have to sort of fill in this section and fill in any divots, and then I'll start going all the way across. And I'm just gonna do that with the same yarn that I had started with, which is this off-white. I want to try something a little bit different for how I'm gonna do the ends in this piece, because sometimes when I do these plain weave ones and then I tuck in the ends, you still can see them a little bit through the surface. And it's not that you're seeing the actual yarn, you're seeing sort of the ridge of the yarn being tucked in the back. So I'm gonna just end this randomly. I'm actually gonna go out toward the middle because I know that I'm gonna have a door here anyway. So let's go somewhere in here. I'm gonna unthread that needle. Then I'm going to just tuck this end into the back, grab a new piece. I'm using about 4 arms lengths in this one just because it is wider, so it uses up more yarn faster. So I ended up with this end is going underneath this warp string. So the next thing to do would be to go over this one. So I'm gonna fish that yarn through and I'll leave myself a nice long tail, and then I'll just start weaving again. Then when I'm finished my piece, what I can do in the back is just tie the 2 ends in a knot, which will make that row connect. And again, because I'm putting a door in this area anyway, even if that does end up adding a little bit of bulk back there, you're not gonna see it from the front in the end. One thing I'm noticing as I'm weaving is we've got a little bit of waviness going on. So I'm trying to keep that in check by just anywhere where it's sticking up further, you can see I just pushed that down with my comb to even it out. Is this gonna be a perfectly woven piece? I mean, no. But I don't mind that. I mean, it doesn't look super uneven either, but I'm just saying, if it's wavy, just look to where it's a little bit higher and push that yarn down a bit more. After I finished weaving the main portion of the house, I moved onto the roof, and I absolutely love how these colors look. I did have to push the rows of the brown color a little closer together because the yarn is a bit thinner, but I love the contrast and texture between the main house portion as well as the roof. Once I got to the very top of the roof, I finished it off with a twining stitch so it would be nice and secure when I take this off the loom. Then I flipped over the loom and I started to tuck in all the ends. I'm not totally sure about this whole knotting situation that I decided to do for some of the ends in the back. So I did knot them, but I left the tails kind of long so I could change my mind later if I want to. The base of the house is all finished, and I'm so excited to start creating all the details to really make this look like a house in the summertime, but you're gonna have to wait for the next video for that. So in the meantime, why don't you check out this video next?